Go. Hey, Guru Nation, welcome back to another episode of Random Musings from the Clinical Trials Guru, and it's a special Let Us Embarrass You episode, which we do every now and then. Well, at least we try. We're not very good at embarrassing people. Most of the time we end up embarrassing... Yeah, we embarrass ourselves most of the time. So, today we're joined by Sujin. Sujin worked for... How long have you worked at the large clinic that you worked for?
4 years.
4 years, okay. And now you're transitioning into a small startup site, right?
That's correct.
And you're just concerned, you're being proactive about, making sure that you're not missing anything, making sure you're able to run the business properly. Because there's a lot, and we're going to get into it in this interview, there's a lot of things that you're going to notice, and I know you've only started working there recently, but there's going to be a lot of differences between your previous place of work and your current one. And by the way, for those listening or watching, Chris Sauber, you're also on, right?
I am.
And, are you going to try to embarrass Sujin?
Her or myself, I don't know which.
Okay, either one's okay. Either one's alright.
Yeah, as long as somebody gets embarrassed.
That's right.
I'll go. You guys can't see my face.
That's right. Alright, so, obviously a lot of differences between... It's still a research clinic, but one, at your previous one, which I'm assuming was an SMO, correct?
No, it's like a research hospital organization.
Ah, okay, so even more structured.
Right, and university hospitals, things like that.
Okay, so the difference is someone already laid the groundwork there. Someone did the SOPs. Someone wrote the manuals that everyone follows. Like, this is what I did when I started my site back in 2006. I wrote the SOPs. We didn't have SOPs. I wrote them. I wrote the study coordinator manual. And then other people came in who I hired, and they followed my systems, right? So that was you. You were the one who was following a system, and now you're building a system. So very different. Yeah. Very different, but luckily you know what you're doing. Like, you're not research naive. You have a good understanding of what it takes to run a clinic. What do you think you're lacking? Like, where are you not as comfortable operating? Under what activities do you think you need more improvement on?
One thing that I feel is I spent last 4 years ophthalmology research. So, and I was a technician in ophthalmology for 6 years prior to that. So I was very, knowledgeable and educated in ophthalmology, but now in dermatology, I have no prior exposure. So that's, like learning diagnosis and just patient population of dermatology is something. But like you said, I'm so used to going into a place where everything's already figured out, and so now I'm building something from bottom up. And because I'm the first one to start research here, I just want to make sure, the foundation is really solid for, next years to come. We may have to hire more coordinators if we get bigger and bigger. That's where I'm hoping that will, go to. But, though you mentioned about SOPs, there are tons of templates online, right?
Yeah, so, SOPs, I guess that, Chris, you want to tell her about SOPs? What we learned from a colleague of ours?
So, oftentimes, you want to limit your SOPs as much as possible. For a fact, with your experience, that you're going to need an informed consent SOP. I would just start with writing that alone. And as SOPs are requested, I would write those.
Okay.
The purpose here is you don't want to find yourself in a situation where the FDA comes to audit. They look over your SOPs and they find discrepancies between what you're doing and what's in your SOP. So you want to limit being pushed into a corner. The less SOPs you have, it's actually more beneficial to you. And the vaguer they are, the better.
Yeah.
I see. So I have, I know it's really confusing because some of the SOPs online, their table of contents and the subsections are very, detailed and just too much, right?
Yeah,
so
you don't want that because if you ever get audited and someone's looking at your SOPs and then they look at your actual process, what you're actually doing, and you're not following your own SOPs, that's a bigger finding than if you didn't have SOPs to begin with. Right?
So on your crash course to site startup, you mentioned that SOPs such as informed consent process is definitely recommended. What other things do you recommend to implement, the SOP in, I know I have a PI oversight and responsibility.
Yeah. Well, the process of consent is as you know, have you done SSV, site selection visits?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's
not here.
Right, but that's the only thing that they ask for when they visit your site for a SSV. 90% of the time is what's your process of consent and can I have a copy? So
right, and then sorry, Dan.
Yeah, go ahead.
Every once in a while they'll ask, say you have an SSV in which for this particular trial the site's responsible for destruction of drugs of the IP. So they'll ask, do you have an SOP for this? And either you could say yes, and I'll email that to you, or no, but we will surely create it. Like Dan's stating here, not too often do they ask for any other SOPs, but it does happen. We've had a number of site selection visits in which we don't have an SOP for what they're requesting, and they're fine with us creating it. And they'll even give guidance on what they want to see in the SOP.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's great to know.
You can always add it. The SOP is a living document, so whenever a monitor asks, what is your process for doing this, and you realize you don't actually have a process for doing that, well, now you need to have one, and it's just. It could even be a paragraph or a few sentences on that particular procedure or process, and then that's like a new chapter of your SOP.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know because I've been stressing about writing all these SOPs. But
oh, I know.
Good.
Yeah, I'm currently writing SOPs for our CRO, and Chris is going to revise it, and then I'll revise it again, and then we have someone else revise it for the final time. But I'm actually learning a lot of the components of a CRO. But it's the same thing. It reminds me of when I wrote the SOPs for my site. Same process. You're not going to get everything down correctly the first time you do it, but it's a living document that you're just going to add to over the years.
Right.
Right?
Right. Yes.
So the vaguer the better because it leaves you more wiggle room to have some freedom when you're actually doing something, right? Like you don't want to trap yourself in a corner.
Right.
And so that's the SOP thing. I wouldn't be too concerned with that. You do need one, but that should be your only concern, that you have something.
Okay.
All right, and start with the process of consent. You can just go on 21 CFR, the section where they talk about consents, and literally just refer to that as that's your process, and then just make sure that you guys are following your process of consent from that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that. I'd be worried about getting studies there. How many studies are you gonna get right now? Like, do you guys have any studies?
That would be my question. Who's responsible for business development?
So everything will be essentially on me until things get going.
Like you.
So, we have a few medical science team that came out here and they asked if PI, our doctor here, is experienced in research, and he has no experience in research. And they're saying, and then it may be difficult to get our site selected. And so their recommendation was, how about you guys start with the registry study, observational study, to kind of get ourselves, build credibility into the research. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Have you had an experience with, a doctor that had the research experience and was able to select it? Or?
We deal with this all the time. So many sites, and we don't tell sites what to do.
Seattle.
But oftentimes when PI has no experience, as you're pointing out, you need to start with a phase 4 trial. That's because the difficulty with the trial, there's not a whole lot of difficulty there, right? It's relatively straightforward and simple.
Not an SMI.
The FDA most likely will not.
A small clinic. It's just starting it.
So the sponsors are less concerned with any possibility of your site looking bad, the sponsor not being able to use your data collected. They don't have. That's not a concern. Phase 4 trial FDA is going to audit.
Now, Chris, someone's asking you from Instagram, because I'm live streaming. Why does PI experience matter? It's all protocol. Anything you want to tell this person?
Well, again, when a site, and it's not just the PI itself, they take into consideration also the coordinator's experience as well. It's both. Obviously, the PI is ultimately responsible for everything that occurs at the site. But if a site lacks experience, they're much more likely to create errors that they were unaware of. They'll do things or not do things that they were unaware of. So while the protocol may specify what specifically is done for this study, there's oftentimes things in the protocol or not in the protocol that still need to be done or that would be expected to be done. For example, acquiring medical records, right? Inclusion and exclusion criteria for all studies require medical records. So, well, depending on how the inclusion and exclusion criteria is written, they may not absolutely be required. There's a general rule in research, if they're not absolutely required, that 3 attempts for those medical records are sufficient. That's not written in the protocol. So the site, they either may just randomize a patient, again, without the 3 attempts, or they will randomize no patients because they're not getting the medical records. And oftentimes those are very difficult to get. And there's many examples like that, in which it's not specified in the protocol that 3 attempts will be sufficient, when indeed it's a general rule of thumb in research, unless the records are absolutely required. Again, many examples of such a situation.
They want to make sure you're following the protocol and you're following good clinical practice, and the only way that they're confident in you to believe that you're not going to screw it up too badly is if you have some experience. So this is why people go for phase 4 studies when they don't have experience, because they can gain some experience. But if I were you, Sujin, I would get whatever study you can get right now. I wouldn't limit yourself to phase 4. There's a good amount of studies out there, and you should be able to get some, especially if you communicate effectively the fact that you have experience. I don't know about your PI. I'm assuming he doesn't have any, but you have experience, right?
Right.
So you need to just become a salesperson and convince them that they should accept your site because you know what you're doing. And you worked at this site or this hospital, and you've been doing it for this many years. Your doctor has X number of patients you can put in. You know how to follow GCP and the protocol, and that's going to be your role. It's going to be more of a salesperson than anything, really.
Is the doctor limited? Is the PI your doctor limited to dermatology exclusively, or is he open to other indications? or she?
He's exclusively interested in dermatology only. That's where he's board certified in.
Well, so that's good.
But he did study internal medicine in medical school, so I don't know. Don't they have to be board certified
No.
to do their specific therapy area?
No, but you got to think of how to get the patients if you get a study that's outside of his therapeutic expertise. So, like, again, it's going to fall down to you or his colleagues. You know, I'm sure he has colleagues, and you're going to have to go network with them and get them involved as sub-investigators so they can refer. We had a person the other day reach out to us. I did a video on this. And they said, hey, you know, these referring physicians, they don't want to send their patients to do studies. And I said, you know, of course they don't, because they're not getting anything out of it. Like, the doctors, first of all, don't understand what research is. And second of all, they're not getting anything out of it. Why would they take time to learn and help you out, and it has no benefit to them whatsoever? So, in your case, when you go to your colleagues of your current PI, you should get them interested in becoming involved with you guys as sub-Is, as PIs. Maybe have satellite locations at their offices where you can do the study. There's a lot of ways to go about this. So get as diverse as you can when it comes to these studies. Don't just limit yourself to dermatology. That'd be like making the same mistake I did when I got started in CNS with psychiatric trials. I didn't really diversify until 5 years into it when I had to, because the market took a turn for the worse. You don't want to wait until that point. You want to do that as early as possible.
Oh, okay. That's something to think about.
Have you found any derm studies yet?
I have. There are actually tons out there. It's really just a matter of getting them to come out and take a look at our site. There are some feasibility questionnaires that I'm filling out.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Really, I've just kind of contacted all the CROs that I know to get us in the database. And just a quick question about the clinicaltrial.gov.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much information to sift through, but what does it mean when it says not recruiting? Does that mean that they are going to start, or are those the ones that's better to target, or?
Well, sometimes it says not yet recruiting, so that means they haven't started screening yet. And sometimes it says active not recruiting, which means that the study's in maintenance phase, but screening is over, right?
Okay, so those not yet recruiting ones, aren't those, in my opinion, I thought it would be best, contact those, because they haven't started the study, so they're looking for sites.
Right. Yeah, contact the ones that are active, not yet recruiting, or recruiting. And it's a numbers game. You're just gonna have to make up for it in volumes. And with derm, I'm worried that you're gonna run out of people to email after a while, because there's only so many derm studies out there.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, I remember when, because our bread and butter is schizophrenia studies. So I remember a few years ago, and this hasn't changed until recently. A few years ago, we were hurting for schizophrenia studies. We really needed some. So I went on clinicaltrials.gov. There were literally, when I clicked private industry-funded trials, because we're not interested in the academic research, you're never going to get those studies. Private industry-sponsored, it was literally 7 studies. There was no way, and none of them were looking for sites. So what happens when your derm conditions go through that drought? And I don't know what the derm market is like now, but you want to eventually start getting into the more traditional trials. Someone yesterday was telling us vaccines, so we're gonna try to add that to our list of therapeutic expertise at 2 of our clinics.
Yeah. Also, our PI doesn't want to limit to drugs. He wants to get on device research as well.
Yeah.
And that is not on clinicaltrials.gov, right?
Yeah, they are on clinicaltrials.gov.
Oh, the devices too. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Good to know. Also, a question about IRB.
Yeah.
As a startup site, I mean, do we have to pay for central IRB
No.
service? Do we have to put that in? Okay.
No. If you're a private site, not affiliated with a hospital or university, and you can utilize central IRBs, you literally should have zero concern about anything related to an IRB, except for when you got your study startup documents and your ongoing IRB approvals. That's the only times you have to concern yourself with the IRB. You never have to pay them. If you want to run an ad, the sponsor will take care of the ad. You need to request it from the sponsor. They will run it through the IRB. You don't need to waste your time with IRBs right now.
Man,
Yeah.
there's something wrong with the audio.
Yeah? Maybe it's on
There's
your...
a really fuzzy sound. Can anybody else hear it?
Yeah. Hold on. Let me mute you and see if it goes away. Yep. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't think there's any difference.
Yeah, you can unmute yourself, Chris. I'm not sure where that's coming from. But hopefully the audio comes out decent. So,
Yeah.
so IRB, don't concern yourself with that. Concern yourself with getting studies and getting patients. That's it.
Okay. Now, I have one last question on my list.
Yeah.
Which is contracts, budget, and negotiating that nature. And so, PI, the site owner here, he wants to do the whole negotiation and contract budgeting and whatnot. Will that affect? Because isn't that kind of like the financial conflict issue, or have you seen a PI doing the negotiating contracts before?
Yeah, they can. It's not common, but they're allowed to.
Oh, okay.
My concern would be he's going to leave a lot of money on the table. Because he's new to research. He doesn't understand what things you can ask for. So if he can handle that entirely on his own without researching on how to do it and have some great videos on it, he's going to leave a lot of money on the table.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't have the experience in that either. I had always the clinical manager doing that for me, and I just get the study. And so.
Are you a part owner of this clinic?
No, I'm not.
Oh,
just
okay.
employee at the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but once things get going and it does well, then there is a potential.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the PI negotiating. They're allowed to do that. It's like Chris said, it's not common. I mean, usually they outsource that to someone like ourselves. By the way, free plug, shameless plug. We do all this for you for $1,000 a month. All right, get studies for you, do the feasibility surveys for you, negotiate your contracts and budgets for you, create your source for you, create your SOPs for you, everything for $1,000 a month, every month. All right.
That's our contract.
Month to month. That's the best part about this whole thing, Suji. Month to month.
All right, that is a really good deal there.
Yeah. I know. We need a lot of sites. We need a lot of sites, whether we own them or they're clients of ours, to help with the infrastructure for our CRO. So we want to be able to move quickly when we get a study, and it's in our best interest to keep our clients happy. So we're very affordable, and we way over deliver, and you can quit anytime. You're not locked into any contract.
I see. That's very good to know. A good resource to have.
Yeah, not bad. If I do say so myself. But again, you can do this all yourself, or you can outsource it. And either way is fine. You just got to pick one.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just so surprised how fast you responded to my text this morning and got this thing set up. And that just tells a lot about how if you are in your field.
Yeah, thank you. It was good timing today. Today's a pretty uneventful day, like I said. We had a couple CRA Academy interns come in, and the rest of the day, it seems like half the industry's gone out of the office right now, so a lot of time to catch up on busy work, and my favorite, doing things like this, networking with other people in the industry. So thank you for reaching out to me, Sujin. I appreciate it. And feel free to follow up with me anytime. I appreciate you listening to the podcast also. So for those of you on YouTube, make sure you check out Random Musings from the Clinical Trials Guru. We will be working on improving our audio. I understand sometimes it sucks, but we'll work to get it better, right?
All right. Well, thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone else for watching. It's Dan, Chris, and Sujin from theclinicaltrialsguru.com and Random Musings from the Clinical Trials Guru. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.